Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 51st episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. I had a request to review a film I do like a lot. Shout out to SMBIFB for the request. Like I said, guys, I'll review whatever movie you want. Luckily, I had this one on Blu ray, and I hadn't seen it in a while, so I was excited to watch it. The criminal underworld of drugs is one of the most interesting to learn about and watch on screen. There's a reason criminal documentaries, movies, and TV shows are so popular. It's crazy to see what some of these people do, but sometimes more insane to watch law enforcement hunt these guys down. Seeing essentially cops and robbers played out on screen is always fun, and what's even more fun is seeing the morals of the criminals and the law enforcers' morals come into question. How far will a criminal go to achieve the American dream? How far will law enforcement go to catch a bad guy, to get that promotion, to get that raise? Sometimes there's a thin line between good and evil, and a lot of people straddle it constantly, especially in certain professions. Some of the best cop movies are the ones where a rookie gets their eyes open to the real world of law enforcement. Training Day is a classic example. Street Kings is a good underrated one. And even though this is not police but FBI, it still follows the same beat. Today, I want to talk about one most people overlook in this category, Sicario. Sicario was released in 2015, directed by Denis Villeneuve, starring one of my favorites, Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin, and Daniel Kaluuya. This is probably Denis' most underrated movie of his recent ones. When you bring his name up, you think Blade Runner, Prisoners, Dune, or Arrival. When I put this on, I was like, wait a minute, Denis directed this too. His style is very apparent in this movie, and you can see some of the foundations for his bigger films that follow this. He presents us with a movie that really leaves you questioning the powers that be. A film that makes you wonder what happens that we don't hear about every day. A slow burning film that nicely peels back its layers to reveal its ugly head over its runtime. I would go as far as to say this film stands out on its own, more than maybe any of his others. He still builds a world and uses his signature styles with vivid colors, intense score, and strong tension building. Now, this movie isn't reinventing the wheel, and it's not anything we've never seen before, but Denis brings us some very interesting characters that play their roles to perfection. Characters that make us question their actions, ones that we can empathize and despise all at once. And those are some of my favorite type of characters. Kate Macer is probably his best character besides Kay from Blade Runner. A strong character who wants to do the right thing, but is ultimately very human, as we see through her actions and vulnerability. This is a film where the villains aren't really clear. Are the so called good guys really good? Can we agree with their actions? Can we agree with the tactics we see here used on criminals? I think this movie does a great job of not making us think one way or another about it. You can always go back and forth with how you feel about how things are going in this movie. That's one of the most fun parts about it, because you really don't know who to trust. For a young and hungry FBI agent, you may be willing to compromise your morals for the sake of your career. Sicario may seem like a simple film about busting criminals, but it's far more than that. It's a revenge story, a study of law and ethics, a movie about one's mental state in a given situation. It begs the question, how far will someone go to get what they want? All our main players here have very apparent motives in why they are doing what they are doing. Where do you draw the line? It shows us that conditioning of the mind can be a dangerous thing. Once one starts committing devious actions, it makes it much easier to do them again in the future. Killing a man a second time, I'm sure, is easier than the first. Some of these people justify their actions by chalking it up to doing their job, doing something for the greater good. Some watchers may agree that they are, while others may not. I'm not here to say whether they are right or wrong. Rules get bent all the time, sometimes for the bad and sometimes for good. With that point, I'm glad I was requested to do this movie as a follow up to my Nightcrawler review, because these movies' themes are very similar. This is a film about morals and ethics, not about crimes and actions themselves. just like Nightcrawler is. Danae and Taylor Sheridan offer us up a gritty story which follows FBI agent Kate Mercer, played by Emily Blunt, as she gets deep on a case of the drug cartel. She must work with two men that she questions who they are and what they are doing as she slowly becomes undone from her experiences. The film slow burns as we get a nicely paced action thriller, a fun screenplay, even though what we see isn't always pretty. With this film taking place in Arizona and Mexico, we get a deserty western feel with beautiful cinematography as we know Danae comes with in his movies. Roger Deakins brings it again in this one. With all that said, I can see someone maybe finding this a little slow pace for them. But this is a film that builds a narrative, even if it's a cliche one we've all seen before. We still get a beautiful picture with some brilliant performances. Emily Blunt, in my opinion, is one of the best working actors in the game. This movie shows us why. She gives us a subdued and unnerving performance that makes seeing her unravel the more upsetting. As we push through this experience with Emily, we start to lose faith and confidence with her, seeing how things really are in her profession. Coming to the realization that everything she's been working for all these years may just be a lie and a joke. The justice system we spent time studying and practicing to uphold its principles may not be what we thought it was. Emily gives us a realistic, flawed character that is very relatable. We see a completely changed person by the end of the movie, and this is a rough one to get to. The other standout in this movie is the legendary Benicio del Toro, the most motivated character and the most haunting. We have a mysterious man whose motivations are unclear outside of his main goal. We never even really know what his official title is, but we do know from the beginning of the movie that Sicario means hitman, and I guess that's what he would be in this situation. He's very intimidating and cutthroat in this film, a guy you definitely don't want to be on his bad side. These two characters play against each other perfectly and are a perfect yin and yang. A lot of tension building, push and pull between these two that ultimately leads to a very upsetting conclusion between them. Although I love these performances, I think most of the characters are a little underdeveloped. I had a very little interest in Brolin's character, even though I get the point is not to know about him or the people on his team. But they felt so flat. I was very interested in Daniel Kaluuya's character, which he got a nice amount of screen time, but we barely got to know him or anything about him. There was a lot more I would have liked to have known about our lead as well. I think the characters are underwritten, but that doesn't take away from what we were supposed to get out of this. Two things Denis always gets right in his movies, like I mentioned earlier, are the cinematography and the score. Roger Deakins gives us some beautiful shots in this movie that just made me really want to go outside and look up at the sky. There are some good shots of the desert too, giving us this modern western feel. Kind of remind me of like No Country for Old Men. It's vivid and bold with some smooth editing. The film is beautifully composed by the late Jahan Johansson. The score here is basically another character with how well it helps build the tension in this film. The music in the scene where they are getting ready to get the Mexican guys on the highway puts you right on the edge of your seat. Sicario isn't gonna be a movie for everyone. I can see how someone may find this boring or maybe find the story too simple or flat. It's not perfect, but one of the better films of this genre done recently in the last 10 years, along with Zero Dark 30. If you like crime thrillers and law movies, I would absolutely recommend this for you. I'm going to give Sicario a 7.9 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching my review. Let me know if there is a film you'd like me to review. If you're on Letterboxd, check me out, Ralph Vader. I'll link that down below. I also got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that down below as well. Check that out. Guys, do me a huge favor, like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I appreciate it if you made it to the end. I'll be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn.